Hello everyone and welcome to SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guest we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted today to be joined by Conor Riordan, Chair of UKISUG, and Philip Adams, UKISUG Board Member and also SUGEN CLT Member, that's Core Leadership Team. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
In today's episode, we're going to be addressing some of the questions that we received from our attendees at Connect, our annual conference, which took place at the end of 2025, that we weren't able to get to on the keynote stage. And we're going to cover them off and give you the answers so that, we make sure that all of your questions have been answered. But just before we get into that, gentlemen, I'd just like to ask you, what's your favourite feel-good song?
Ooh.
While you're having a think about that, I kind of had a thought about this myself, and to be honest, if you do come to mind, but I don't think I have a favourite. It's like this morning I got in the car, for instance, and Whitney Houston's Where the Broken Hearts Go started playing, and it just took me back to the late 80s and made me smile while driving into the office. So I think for me, music's just an amazing time machine that can take you to places of happiness and, of course, sometimes sadness, but also helps you reflect on the good times. So, Philip.
You had to come to me first. Probably a couple of songs spring to mind, and like you, depending on the mood you're in and what your day is looking like, it can vary. And certainly, the 80s would always strike a chord with me. Things like maybe Louis Armstrong's "You've All the Time in the World," is an easy listening one. It helps you maybe focus, relax on life, or think about life maybe a bit. But also some of the more upbeat ones, whether it be AC/DC and things like that, Thunderstrike or Back to Black. It again very much depends on the mood I'm in and what I would like to go to in a particular time.
No, from quite chill to absolutely blasting into the office. I like that. Conor?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of my running mix. One that I like that comes on is Happy from Pharrell Williams. So when I'm out there beating and it's just, sometimes you get that sense of you're out running. Yeah, you just get into that frame of mind that, the adrenaline's going, and that one that always lifts me. Makes me run that little bit faster when I'm out on the road.
Oh, thanks very much. Appreciate that, guys. Very, very interesting. And okay, just now dropping into our topics, and we're going to run through some of the questions that were asked at Connect that we weren't able to get to on stage, and I think really straight in with a biggie. I think so. If I can start with you, Phillips, I think this is probably best position for you. Is what progress has been made on the consumption-based licensing model, and what are UKISUG doing on that front?
Yeah, so UKISUG is part of SUGEN, the SAP User Group Executive Network, and one of the major strategic initiatives that SUGEN work on is a whole licensing charter. It's probably one of the most long-standing charters that's been running within SUGEN for many years. And consumption-based licensing has cropped up as part of a topic within the whole licensing area. We recognise as organisations move from traditional on-prem ERP to cloud ERP. Also, as SAP's product portfolio changes, we understand that licensing models need to adapt to reflect what customers expect, how customers consume the capability and the multitude of solutions. And within the UKISUG, we believe that consumption-based license model has to be part of that transition. And we're not alone in that. Other user groups globally think the same, and collectively through SUGEN, we're part of that license charter team, and consumption-based licensing is one of those challenges that we want to address. Now, we do recognise that it has to be in the context of the products, the portfolios, the way aspects have shifted towards the introduction of AI, business technology platform, and all of the other aspects along with the full user equivalent. So there's lots of metrics used to measure consumption and usage of SAP products, but true consumption, so that we believe as customers we're getting value for what we're using, is a good way to go. It's an ongoing topic that we're working with SAP on, and all being well, we'll start to make some progress on that within the different areas and products that they're selling to our members.
Oh, thanks, Philip. And just on that, obviously, SUGEN brings together 20 plus user groups from around the world, and there are charters for very important subjects, if you like, for our membership bases. So could you give us a bit of an outline on the licensing charter itself?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the licensing charter, its core purpose is to enhance the strategic collaboration between SUGEN and SAP on licensing. And that is not just about providing feedback, but it's also influencing those license strategies and driving transparency, fairness and clarity in SAP's licensing practices. We do that. There are 11 volunteers as part of that charter group across 8 different user groups, so there's a real global spread. And we work with them not just, as I said, on the influencing side, but making sure that there's clear transparency around some of the products to help people measure their consumption and their usage, but also help them measure things like the software asset management element, the fact that they have the whole SAP for me, and you can log on and you can see what you're entitled to, and also the metrics around your usage of many of your software as a service products and so forth. But we firmly believe then that education and knowledge is just as important as challenging them on the more strategic topics. So when they introduce things like Business Data Cloud or BTP and AI, how those are measured and licensed is equally important. And for any customer, remember to try and keep on top of all the information that surrounds those solutions and how they're purchased and used and measured. Is really, really important, and we help bring that feedback back to SAP where improvements could be made in that area around the fairness and the transparency. We've had success over the last number of years in many of the topics we've worked on, but some of the more recent ones are the ones we're going to focus on this year will be around some of the newer technologies such as AI, how we measure the consumption and usage of AI and BTP, but also around the flexibility, because we recognise that business models change, business usage of SAP changes, business will adapt and change, and therefore their usage of SAP changes, and hence then the licensing, how they're consuming and using that, and they're ultimately paying for it must change as well. So that really effectively sums up really what the charter is all about, and obviously taking the feedback from across those 8 international user groups and working collectively together with SAP to affect change and improve the opportunities for our organisations and members.
Thank you, Philip. And as I mentioned in the introduction there, you sit on the core leadership team of SUGEN. So obviously, here at UKISUG, we see SUGEN as strategically important to us and our members going forward. So Conor, can you talk through a little bit more widely on SUGEN, perhaps, on how we work within SUGEN to influence SAP?
Sure, yeah. I think for us, SUGEN, we meet twice a year formally. So we go to Waldorf normally in April and November. And really what we're doing is we're bringing back the feedback from our member base in terms of, I suppose, concerns predominantly around the product. So when we go to SUGEN, it's around the product, and it's around how SAP are rolling out the technology, their approach to upgrades, to ECC, to S4 moves, and all these kind of big program issues. And so as a collective voice then, we can speak to SAP's board, members of DLT, and kind of share with them the collective feedback from the ground up of how our members are feeling about strategic decisions that SAP are making. And then by giving that leadership team access to that kind of feedback, it kind of helps them as well in terms of maybe some of their decision making, because often they don't get, where they sit within the organization, they don't often get to hear this feedback either. So for them, to me, it's a win both ways. It's a win for us in terms of getting access and providing feedback, but it's also a win from them because they're hearing directly from their customers on how their customers and their promoters would like them to improve or maybe change direction. So to me, it's a really powerful forum, and one that SAP are really supportive of, which, we get to meet Christian once a year, which just kind of shows the importance of this to them also as an organization.
Thank you. And so you mentioned that strategic importance. So we get to meet Christian Klein and discuss the feedback of our members globally with him. And are there others that you engage with to give that feedback from the executive levels of SAP?
Yeah. So obviously, then we will meet with at a country level. We'll meet with Leila Rahman and her team. Leila on a quarterly basis. I think last year we met with her SLT. And again, that's an opportunity of maybe giving more direct feedback on the service rather than the product. Because often, product strategy comes out of the core, how service is delivered comes out of the markets. So between a combination of working directly with Leila and her LT, around the delivery of the service, and then how we work with SUGEN through the ELT in Waldorf, we get to represent our members on both maybe an operational level and a strategic level.
Thank you. And do you feel SAP listens to and perhaps adjust strategy based on the feedback they get from user groups and SUGEN? Yeah,
they definitely listen, for sure. And I think for them it's really important. I think in terms of adjusting strategy, we'll often see it. We may not get the credit, but we'll often see tweaks 6 months, 9 months down the line in terms of how certain messages may be softened. I think there was a lot of softening around the ECC to S4 in terms of the migration. Even recently we saw the enhancement packs there, the compatibility packs, the extension. An extension on the compatibility pack. So I mean, they do listen, and at times they will also change. But sometimes just the listening itself is important because it does help them in their decision making with the next decision. Maybe not the one that's gone, but in terms of future decisions as well.
Oh, thank you. Anything to add, Philip?
Yeah, just the fact that as Conor said, we meet. With monthly calls, we have twice yearly face-to-face meetings as a user group executive network, and we have senior executives, including Christian Klein, at those meetings. So the fact that they take the time out to engage with us in advance of those meetings, we put together strategic topics, strategic questions, and the idea of those executives exchanges, they get direct feedback on those topics from people on the floor. And those are topics and questions that we've garnered and gathered through our various memberships, 22 user groups across 5 continents. So, they're putting that effort in and the time in to get that. So for them not to act on it doesn't make sense. And they do relish the input and the fact that they keep coming back year after year. Clearly they're getting benefit from that, and some of those topics can be challenging, but also some of it can be very positive, and we're well able to and we're only happy to highlight where we hear from our membership of the positive and the good things that are happening and the direction things are going in. And other aspects that SUGEN can do for our wider membership is even things like meet the developers, where we get the opportunity to have many of our community leads and chairs get out to Waldorf once a year with other similar volunteers from across the globe and engage with the developers on site around what they're doing. So there's no sales, there's no emphasis on product selling there. It's all around the product innovation and development and improvements that they want to see to meet the demands and requirements within the respective organisations and industries. So without a doubt, it's a powerful network. The fact that there's a lot of time and effort put in from the SAP side to support user groups globally, indicates that they see value from it and they're willing to listen as well, and therefore obviously our influence can make a difference.
Thank you. So just moving on now to another question. So come back to you, Conor, if I may. Question was, how should organisations balance the need to be agile with the need of having strong governance and structure around business processes and IT applications architecture?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. It's probably one that many organisations are struggling with, in that the speed at which technology is being delivered versus the speed at which you can enable it is there can be a gap, and often there can be a frustration amongst the business community that something new comes out from SAP or whatever, and it takes 8, 9 months, 10 months to deploy, when it should be much quicker. So I think some of this is around maybe going back to maybe organizations in terms of how they think, and maybe some guardrails. So, I think the first thing is maybe looking at a clean core strategy in terms of, how organizations want to innovate. Are they going to innovate on the core? Or are they going to innovate in BTP, for example? And having kind of initial guidelines so that companies know our strategy is we're not going to build everything on BTP. So that might get rid of a lot of questions around, from a decision making in terms of, are we still building Z codes in the core, so you come up with a core strategy. I think the second thing then is try and come up with architecture principles around, we might be going API first, or no core modifications, or, we've got, pre-built templates that we want to use, rather than every new request being a new deep dive enhancement with big architecture review. And I think the other thing then is try and get the broader product team involved in terms of the solution architects, the governance board involved at an early stage, so that as these, new requirements or new functionality comes to the table, that you get everybody involved at the start from a decision-making perspective, and hopefully get this through much, much quicker. But it is a key challenge. I mean, at the end of the day, companies need to, especially on SAP platforms, when you're running your end-to-end business on it, you need to have compliance, you need to have financial control, you need to have good governance. So you got to also balance the risk of moving stuff to production too quickly that may impact your operations. But it's certainly something companies will have to continue innovating on and trying to be more agile, with probably stronger governance around the framework around how they want to operate going forward. Like I say, their clean core principles and their architecture principles.
Thank you. And so during your presentation at Connect, you mentioned a reduction in investment in training and adoption budgets to protect the bottom line. Yeah. Is this potentially not a false economy, as return investment and business value on tech investment will be threatened if adoption fails or takes longer, perhaps?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've been in this like 30 years at this point in time. I think one of the things most organizations do a poor job at is measuring return on investment. So, you get the budget up front, the big budgets, you implement the software, you roll it out, you go live, and job's done. So, measuring that return on investment can often be tricky. I think, the days of people going off on external training programs, so it seems to be gone since post-COVID. Like, there's an expectation that people can self-learn, people can go on to like say LinkedIn Learning these days, people go on to YouTube, that people will learn themselves. And there's also a different, I suppose, cohort coming into the workplace that are used to being self-learning through these tools. So I think maybe sometimes it's a question of how we maybe look at our learning approach. And at the end of the day, we still need to create content. It needs to be high value content, but in terms of how we want that content delivered to our end users, in terms of both process training and transactional training. So there still needs to be an investment in training for sure. whether that is an external training versus internal training, I think is where most companies are struggling. The ability to get big budgets anymore for external training seems to be gone. But I think as project teams, as we're delivering and we're putting budgets together to deliver projects, we still need to budget within there for the building the content, delivering the content, and maybe making the content more accessible going forward, that it's not classroom type training, that maybe it's mini videos, it's just different ways of working that you know the digital savvy colleagues coming into the workplace are more used to. So I think how we deliver training is definitely changing, but no training is definitely, you know, it is going to impact adoption and ROI for sure.
I think as well, just to add to what Conor said, that, you know, as we move more and more to subscription-based licensing of solutions, you know, yes, you can have a ramp up in that subscription service over time, but, you know, the longer it takes for you to adopt a solution and for your full user base to be fully active and utilizing it to its full potential, you're still paying the same subscription fee to a certain extent. So you know, gone are the days whereby, yes, you can buy it, take a while to implement it, you've only really paying a maintenance fee. You're paying for the full capability of that service very often from day one, while you're going through the adoption and implementation phase and through to the full training and deployment and getting full value from it. So the quicker you can do that, the quicker you get the return on the investment you're currently making. So I think it's really important that, you know, you've good, solid, clear pathways to full adoption and full use of those applications early on, because then you'll get the return on the investment you're already making in the subscription payment.
Thank you. It's a great point.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UKISUG membership with those who don't know about us? The UKISUG referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
If I can actually stay with you, Philip, if I may, a slight change in direction on the question now. This one's about public sector. Given the additional budget pressures for the public sector organisations, where I suppose income is determined externally rather than through selling goods and services, is there a need for a subset of UKISUG specifically to support the public sector?
Like ultimately as a member organisation, we're there to service and support all the members, but you know, and we do have a strong cohort of public sector and private sector membership across the user group. And to be honest, a lot of the topics, challenges that they all face are exactly the same. As you just said, the budget pressure on the public sector might be slightly higher, but that's more back to my earlier point then. We need to make sure as a user group we put the services in place to allow them to understand how to leverage the capability and maximise the benefit from the solutions that they're implementing. But, you know, because we're a membership organisation, we're only too glad to hear from existing public sector members about the successes, the experiences they had, so that the other public sector members can hear from them. You know, we've done numerous initiatives over time, and they're using many of the same products that the private sector are, so we can all learn from each other in that respect. But ultimately, with that particular nuance that the public sector has over private sector, we can only hear that from those members directly. So I encourage them all to really engage as much as they can. If they've got a use case or a story to tell, another customer and a member of ours out there would only be too glad to hear about it.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Craig, just to add to what Philip is saying, I mean, one of the areas come up in the last number of the last 12 months is the whole area of sovereign cloud, and it's a core offering now from SAP in a lot of markets where even within our own UKI, we now have a data center down in Clockhouse Place that SAP are offering the sovereign cloud platform. So again, we're looking at it from a user group perspective in terms of, you know, we're looking at our public cloud, private cloud, but we're also looking at the sovereign cloud offering in terms of, you know, how do we support members that maybe both public sector, but also maybe defence or other sectors that are looking to that sovereign cloud platform. as a solution to meeting some of their needs and regulatory requirements.
Thank you. And, just on that point, for our listeners, we do have a public sector community. Do visit the website and look at the public sector community for events and engage in the community chat on there. And I think I'm right in saying as well, from a board perspective, for many years now, we've always had somebody with a strong public sector background on the board to help support that side of our membership as well.
Yeah, we've had someone on the board now for 10, 12 years. So it is one of the core pillars within our organisation.
Thank you. And I suppose, for all intents and purposes, this is an SAP conversation as such, and there'll be no SAP conversation held in maybe this year or future years that doesn't cover AI. So there were a number of AI questions that came up. So we're just going to drop into that in this next section of the pod now, just to tackle some of those AI questions, if we may. So, question. How is UKISUG assisting with reskilling of membership in S4 and in AI? If I can stay with you to start on that one, Conor, please.
Yeah, so listen, this is a really interesting space, and we didn't mention at the top, but at the moment we're doing a strategic review of UKI, our service offering, and how we're positioning ourselves, looking out to 2030 with the transition from kind of on-prem to the new technologies. And part of that, as part of our strategy, is how do we support members from an AI viewpoint. And currently we're looking at how do we integrate AI, maybe not so much as a standalone group, but as a cross-functional group across all of our user groups. So I think as we move forward this year, more and more we're introducing the AI topics into the various communities, so that we're exposing each of the communities to what's happening, what the technologies are out there, and also actively trying to get good stories and good use cases of customers that have deployed technology and getting those success stories. Because I think what's key for most organizations is hearing about the success stories of successful AI, but also the challenges that organizations have gone through to get it maybe through the legal process, get it approved, get it installed, and get it up and running. Because my own experience of deploying my first AIs in SAP is it probably took longer to go through the legal process than it did to actually do the implementation. And that's some of the new stuff that we're faced with, that we got to share with our members in terms of some of the key challenges of deploying this technology.
Thank you. And Philip, so what are some of the other things perhaps you guys are doing, setting up potentially additional sessions around SAP AI, etc.?
Yeah, like you said, I think AI, it's not just an SAP world, but any software company and more. It's the only thing they tend to talk about. So I think every organisation recognises that it can't be ignored, and every organisation will have their own pace at what they need to leverage and deploy AI, and through our events and services, we recognise that. So, we're not shying away from the need. Ultimately our partners, SAP, and many of our customers are doing lots in this area. Some of it successful, some of it not. And we'll leverage that through various events, whether it be our AI discovery workshop, how we embed that into numerous events. So even though an event might not be labelled as AI centric, AI will often be a theme or an underlying topic that's covered off in many of the presentations and that would be happening at the events. Later this year, if you look at our events catalogue, you'll see there's the AI symposium in there, and actually we have tracks that connect around this. It's definitely out there. We definitely want to hear more and more, not just partners standing up there necessarily evangelizing about how great AI can be in your organization. It's really good to hear use cases, and I think some of the real use cases and turning into proper benefit that is tangible and measurable isn't as easy. We all know that AI is constantly adapting and evolving, and ultimately, it's getting better and better all the time. So, we can't ignore it as organizations. We can't ignore it as a user group, because certainly it's top of mind for many lines of business, heads of IT and so forth. And therefore we need to ensure that we're covering that off through the various webinars and face-to-face events that we're having throughout the year.
Thank you. And this next question, perhaps, I kind of covered this, I think, on the podcast with Mark Rabin, who delivered a keynote at Connect, and perhaps this came from somebody who wasn't actually at that session. But, the question is, with 80% of UKISUG membership not yet using AI, this came from a poll that we did during the keynotes, how is UKISUG working with members to dispel the fears around the usage of AI? For instance, a loss of human skills, with AI taking over a lot of analysis. And just before I come to you on that, just to give my own tuppence worth, if I may, on that. And, if I go back to, some of the things that Mark Rabin said in his keynote, it's that fusion of human and AI, that centricity between the two and learning to work together. Yes, AI can analyze very, very quickly, but my belief is it still needs that human eye on it to understand, to gain the context, and to make sure that that data is correct. So, gentlemen, your thoughts, Conor, if I can come to you first.
Look, this is a really interesting one, and I'm grappling with this myself at work at the moment. And I kind of look at it two ways. I say, is AI a productivity tool to help people do their job better, or is it an automation tool to remove their work? And it's somewhere in between. And I think what we're finding, what we see is it's more a productivity tool than an automation tool. And so when it gets into that productivity tool, it's then a question of how you're making it easier for people to do their job. And so the tricky thing with this then is when you get into like investment, it's like when you invest in technology, people are expecting a return on investment. They're expecting tangible, maybe in a lot of the AI stories you'll hear about headcount reduction. And, that's, in a lot of cases, that's difficult to kind of, if it's a productivity tool, it's difficult to kind of make that business case. So I think first of all, I was trying to understand and tell the stories about what is it that these AI agents are doing, and is it driving productivity or is it driving automation? A lot of the AI around automation is actually just machine learning. It's the standard, it's not really AI agents. And I think when you're really in the world of AI agents, it's around driving productivity and driving better decision making and driving faster decision making. So I think the more stories we can tell and the more examples we can show where people really understand, here's a use case that was deployed and here is what the output was, then people will get a better understanding and probably the fear will also drop. I think the other thing for organizations is like, and again, we struggle a bit with this, is like, do you build or do you deploy? So we've taken the approach, say, in our customer service organization, we want to deploy standard SAP agents rather than build our own. And that again gives us a kind of speed to value, but it also means we're trying to deploy standard functionality to increase productivity rather than building complex stuff to try and do automation. So I think that's the other piece as well, in terms of people not being fearful of trying to experiment and deploy, out of the box AI agents that might be available to you on your cloud solutions, versus trying to build and get into really complex models. So, go simple, start simple, get some experience under your belt, get some use cases, and then, start to experiment and maybe go a little bit more complex later. But start with the easy stuff, and there's lots of easy stuff out there.
Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, I think Conor summed it up nicely there. Like every industry and company will be different depending on what industry you're in and what you're doing. Whether it be product-led, efficiency-led, or innovation-led in terms of what AI can do for your organization. And then within organizations, it could vary from function to function or department to department. But Conor had said at the very start, it really should be seen as probably augmenting the capability that the individual, the humans in the organisation already bring, whether that is around efficiency gain or identifying that new innovation. But the way I look at it is that you need almost a very solid foundation in place to begin with, and only that can nearly be done with the expertise and the knowledge within the people within the organisation, where they've got the right applications, the right data structure in place. Otherwise, AI will not bring that much advantage. Yes, it might get you to the result faster, but could be the wrong result, or certainly not the most ideal. So, that still requires the knowledge, the expertise from across the organisation to be able to make sure that solid foundation's in place first, and then from there just scale and look for those opportunities, which generally will actually free up then the time that individuals can therefore direct somewhere else within the organisation, which if it's a productivity gain, then they can direct their energy more at the innovation and the growth area.
Thank you. And of course,
just a very easy example, Craig. One of the ones I really liked, an agent is on the Concur platform at the moment, where you scan in your hotel bill and the agent automatically itemizes it all within the expense claim, which used to be a real pain in the ass to do. But now it just you send in the image, and it reads the invoice, and it automatically does the allocation. So again, it's not a very complex use case, but it just shows how just little simple things like that, get it in, get it running, get it deployed, learn from it, gives a productivity back to employees. Only a couple of minutes, but you roll that up over an organization, it's still productivity gain. So they don't all have to be really complex.
Very cool. We won't delve into the itemization of movie channels and things like that watched in hotels, etc. So, just moving on swiftly now. Where do you see AI evolving? If we think about SAP specifically, can it replace SAP or build a brand new product completely reimagined that could replace SAP ERP software as we know it?
Yeah, there's the theory and there's the reality. When you look at a product like SAP and its complexity and its resilience, to me, it's like a big diesel engine. It just works. And one thing when you're running an organization, you need something to be predictable, reliable, that can just run 24/7, and you don't have to worry about it. So you've got something today that basically works. Now, can you get to a world where AI can do all of this? I wouldn't think it would be able to be as resilient and as accurate and as compliant as what we have today. Now, that might change in 10, 15 years, but in the next 5 to 10 years, I can't see it happening. I think what you see happening is you see for me, you've the power of SAP taking data out into the likes of BDC, and then on top of BDC, you got your AI agents, which is working on curated, really strong data set that's integrated maybe with your document management systems to get context around documents and information. I think that's where you're going to see. I think the innovation is going to be on the BDC layer and the data models and getting insights, rather than replacing the core ERP platform, which to me is like I say, it's a good diesel engine. It's just reliable, runs. You just don't need to worry about it really. It's just so resilient. I don't know what you think, Philip.
Yes, from the SAP perspective, I suppose it's the user interface of the future, isn't it? That's how customers, utilising SAP will naturally use SAP from the front end, chatting to an AI.
It'll be user interface, but at the back end, you'll still be processing a sales order through your system. It's still going to have all the resilience, control, structure, discipline. But someone may at the front end say, you want to create a sales order for X, but the back end I think is going to remain the same.
Thank you. And just, Philip, if I can come to you with this question. We're coming towards the end now, guys. Your grilling's nearly over. AI is indeed groundbreaking. and it has shown a laser-like focus on the need for process standardization and data quality. How do we get C-suite leaders to understand the importance of this in order to realise the benefits of AI?
Yeah, like obviously each C-suite member will have different views on that, but I think you need to shift the conversation away from the technical aspect, the AI and technology and how that works and all the rest of it, towards more strategically what's important for the company. What are those initiatives from an operations perspective that is driving the outcomes and the successes and everything else that the company holds its value towards. And once you define that, then you'll always find you'll be able to frame AI then more, as I said earlier, as to augment the existing capabilities that you already have got. It just amplifies then that, as Conor said, to improve that productivity or help you develop those innovations faster and faster. And as I said earlier, you need to have those solid foundations. And like an SAP have used this description many times with like a flywheel diagram, if other people have seen it, where you've got data at the center, your apps around that, and then AI just supports all of that around it. So, if you think of it like that, you need to focus on the data quality, you need to focus on the application architecture that you've got, what's at your core, and then that's when you can truly deploy the AI capabilities as much as you can to meet those business case requirements, get those quick wins, and so forth. How you do all that within organizations to convince the C-suite to buy into that, a lot of organizations are setting up these centers of excellence. They're not necessarily relying on any given technology partner or solution provider, but they're trying to develop co-collaborative teams within their own organization who come from an operations perspective as well as a technology background or whatever it happens to be, to just collaborate together and figure out what's best for them as an organization, and then just start small and scale from there and sell that concept and strategy to the rest of the C-suite, get the budget to support and the buy-in, and be willing to be happy to make mistakes and learn from them, and realize that the technology will advance, but making sure if you have a solid foundation to begin with, you will hopefully get more and quicker and faster successes than mistakes.
Thank you. And I suppose finally, just as we come to a close, is there anything you would like to add? Anything perhaps that we've missed or I didn't ask that you feel we should have asked?
No, I think maybe, and I think I said it finishing off at the keynote in Connect, I think we're going through a time of huge change, and I suppose for me what's key as a user community is we just keep sharing our stories, either the successes and the failures, because we learn more from the failures than we do from the successes. But I just think it's really key that as we're going through this transformation phase, both maybe from an ECC to S4, but also this whole AI revolution, that we just keep sharing and we keep talking and we keep staying connected, and that we can learn from each other as we go along, because this stuff is complex and it's changing every month. Every time you change, the strategy is it's so fluid. So we just need the power of the community to basically, if only for us to all realize that we're in this together and that it is difficult, that in itself is a great support. But I think getting all those use cases, getting the stories, is just going to be so powerful.
Yeah, and add to that as well, it's not just from a UK and Ireland perspective, whereas it's back to what we discussed at the start. We're very much part of a very large user group network through SUGEN globally. So we hear and see the same challenges, the same opportunities, the same successes as well. And the more that we can engage with other user groups globally in this to influence and challenge where SAP is going, but also where they get the support and from across their partner network, where there's pain points, where we're struggling to get the system implementation partners to step up to the mark to provide the expertise and skills that we need to achieve our goals. We see that not just a challenge within the UK and Ireland, but globally. So the more we can highlight those concerns and those issues, the better. And then we'll get the benefits from that, not just for our local members, but for those customers around the world.
Thank you. Conor, Philip, thank you very much. You know, we said at Connect that we would take all the questions, we would answer them, we would get them back to our members, and thank you for your support and insights in supporting that today. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Thanks, Philip.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and align with Conor's running song and be happy.